hour. Scents of bad water and the ashes of a fire soaked by overnight rain had seeped up the basement stairs into the hallway. She'd found wires chewed through under the fuse box in the basement, and the wall behind the damaged cables was stained by unidentifiable matter, mostly dry, which she covered with black paint, kept her eyes closed, and cried at the same time as she lashed the wall with the brush. With an unwelcome frequency, they had also begun to leave things behind, to introduce inevitability to a daunting reacquaintance. Yesterday, before she wrote a long email to her son in Toronto, writing as if it were the last communication she would ever make, she found a little blackened shoe on the kitchen floor, small enough for a child, hard as wood, stitched like a buckskin moccasin, and old, so very old. Dropped from a foot she dare not even consider. A puff of soot had fallen from it when she scooped it up with a pizza menu to drop in the trash. And here we are, girl. Bump, 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 bump. Frantic now in at least one room upstairs, probably her bedroom. The woman recalled a party above the thin ceiling of a motel room she'd once rented in LA a long time ago, on the run even then. Those muffled thumps of feet and sudden shrieks and bursts of laughter from strangers that served no greater purpose than a reminder of her disengagement from life while keeping her awake. But up there, in this house, her final refuge, wasn't any kind of party she wanted to attend. They were in her room for sure, because the determined bumps, swaddled by bedclothes, had become crashes as something on her bed started to cast about. A bedside table was swept of its contents. The woman pulled her dry tongue from the roof of her mouth to swallow the lump in her throat. She knuckled a fist against the wall until the dizziness passed, then turned around and closed the front door, shut herself inside, with them. Another of her uninvited visitors attempted to raise itself from the floor of the kitchen. She could hear it behind the closed door at the end of the hall. A disturbance she'd heard in the last 2 apartments she'd rented right before she fled them in the middle of the night. Sounds that brought to her mind the image of a wildebeest calf she had once seen on television, with a leg broken by the jaws of a crocodile, jerky in its attempt to pull itself away from the water. When she wondered if they would come for her on all fours or upright, she raised the pistol and went and stood at the foot of the stairs, supported her lead hand with the other like she'd learned on the gun range, but with the barrel pointed up. Ready. The woman stilled her mind and let her final thoughts find a memory of her boy, on the night she carried him through the cold desert, pressed into her chest. So long ago, but she remembered his snuffles, his warmth, a little hand clasped in her raven hair like it was yesterday. Went all the way down to her waist in those days and covered her baby like a waterfall. That boy always knew who his mama was too. Didn't matter what they did to make it not so, make no mistake, he always knew. And she got her boy out. She smiled through her tears, sucked her breath inside. "Come on, you bitch!" she screamed at the thing that moved into partial visibility, in a murky articulation of painful movements, onto the top step. Darkness folded about the stairs. They brought it with them from the lightless place between here and somewhere else. And within its protective veil, the intruder obeyed her request and came down to her, on all fours, the face upturned. Before it covered the short distance between them, the woman shoved the cold barrel of the handgun inside her own mouth. When it felt like it was somewhere behind her eyes, she squeezed the trigger. The Process. An epic story of inhuman savagery. Irvin Levine, Last Days. Chapter 1. Bloomsbury, London, 30th of May, 2011. Have you ever heard of Sister Catherine and the Temple of the Last Days? The smile vanished from Maximilian Solomon's eyes when he asked the question, a sign of self-seriousness